gracias a Sport Data Campus, 𝐃𝐚, a David, a Miguel Ángel.
Me siento muy orgulloso de presentar este módulo, de colaborar contigo y con Sport Data Campus.
Huddle allows you to adapt to exactly what you need in your club and what you need in your team and what you need in your competition.
It can be applied to any sport, anywhere, anytime.
By far the most robust analytical software that I've used.
Todo deporte tiene sus reglas hasta que alguien las cambia. Siendo más ágil que el resto. Logrando que veamos el fútbol con otros ojos. Demostrando que el juego no entiende de género. Llega otra forma de sentir el deporte. Llega un nuevo medio deportivo. Relevo, el testigo del deporte.
Good afternoon for everyone. Hi Toby, hi Pablo.
Hello.
Hola David.
Welcome to this new season of the Sports Data Forum. Thank you very much, Toby, for joining us today.
No problem. Happy to be here.
I will now hand over to Pablo, who will lead the session.
Thank you, David. Thank you. And as David was saying, thank you and good afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you're watching this today around the world. It's such a privilege and a pleasure to have Toby with us today. We are all in here for a treat and we are all very excited. But before we let him start his session, I would like to give a little bit of a housekeeping to everyone involved in the call today. So we're going to start for the first hour with Toby's presentation. It ran about 40-45 minutes, and after that we'll open some time for some questions to Toby. Feel free to write your questions on the YouTube on YouTube simply, and also we'll share the link so people can come in the room and ask some questions as well. And after that we'll start our round table today, which again we have amazing professionals in the football industry speaking today with us. We'll have Victor Horta, Sport Director at Sevilla FC. We have Stuart Weber, Sports Director of Football at Norwich City. And we'll have Dan Answorth, Director of Football at Newcastle United. So as you can tell, this is today a special evening for us all. So again, after the roundtable time, which will start around 7:30, they'll go around for some time, and then we'll leave some time at the end, of course, for questions for everyone involved to be able to ask directly to them. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Toby. Toby, we are all yours now. Looking forward to your presentation.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I'll just share this and make sure that everybody's able to see this.
Perfect. There we go.
Brilliant. So if that's all coming through okay.
I think we can all see it, yeah.
Excellent. So yeah, thank you very much for having me here. My name is Toby Saliba, and I am Head of Data and Insights here at City Football Group. As you can tell, my main priority and focus within the organisation is for Manchester City FC. I work on the business side of things of data science, so there is a football data science team, but my focus is on the fans. My specific team is called Fan Experience, Analytics and Insights. It's a bit of a mouthful, but I will talk through what we do. I'm going to use this time to talk through how we can use data science to optimize the fan experience in a football club or anywhere else. So yeah, fan experience, analytics and insights. Our team is using analysis and research methodologies to grow our understanding of fans. So we are, on an ongoing basis, diving into the data, using code, predominantly Python, to use advanced methodologies for predicting and modeling fan behavior. So as well as going into the data and looking at what has happened and what is currently happening within the fan world, we're also trying to predict what will happen going forward. This helps us to provide actionable insights for the business on our fans. It helps us give some context over what their experience is like, what the pain points are like, how the different groups of fans are growing within our football club. I'm not going to focus on this for too long, but we do also develop, self-service analytics tools to make sure that the business is able to go away and develop all of the insights that they need to use without having to code. However, we're probably going to talk more about the more kind of data sciencey pieces that we do and how we are really going into looking at understanding the performance drivers of fan satisfaction and fan revenues. Now that fan satisfaction piece is really key, and it's what Man City are and City Football Group as a general organization are really focusing on at this moment in time. The reason why is the theory that if we provide the best possible experience for the fan, they will inevitably be happier, they'll have a much funner time, and they'll give higher satisfaction scores. And this will naturally result in higher engagement, which would then correspond to that revenue. So the whole ethos with which the club is currently working is if you deliver the best experience, you're going to get the best engagement and the best revenue from your fans. So that's why we are specifically within that fan experience side of the business. So a bit of history. When I joined City Football Group 2 years ago, And at that time, we were just kind of a very small analytics department, very much sitting within a traditional marketing space. So we were going into our data, using our data platform that had somewhat developed, and really working on pulling out the key insights of what's going on within our fan base. I will enlighten throughout this presentation a bit more about some of these ideas that we're looking at and give you a bit of context over what we're doing. But yeah, we were quite a fairly small team of analysts at that point. Since then, we've now evolved into a much larger remit of things. So we are now, as you can see here, we've still got that data product side of things. We've still got our analysts and our data and insights manager there as well, who are responsible for really going into the data and looking at what is currently happening and what has happened in the past, as well as creating audiences required for campaigns. However, we've opened up these other two sectors, right? So we've got that machine learning engineering side of things where our data scientist predominantly sits. And that's, again, really going into the data, not only saying what did happen, what is happening, but looking at what will happen in the future and kind of using a much more sophisticated technologies to give a much better understanding of the fan. We've also got our data ops group as well that you can see is where our engineer capabilities lie. Again, these guys are really making sure that our data platform as a whole is maintained and providing the right reliable amount of data for the rest of the team to be able to work with, so that when an analyst comes in, wants to work on a specific project, they've already got nicely curated data set ready to go and they can just focus on the creativity part there. We're going to talk more about that side of things probably towards the end of this presentation, because it is an important one. Before we get there, want to talk a little bit about how we are thinking at Manchester City about fan experiences. So what are we actually looking like? The first piece that I want to talk through here is around the ticket exchange analysis. So as many of you will know, obviously a season ticket holder purchases their whole, in the Premier League, 19 home games up front. So they've got access to all 19 home games with their set seat. But should they be unable to attend a game, they know they're going to be out of town that weekend, at City, they are enabled to list their tickets on something called the ticket exchange. And this allows the fan to, this allows another fan to buy it back. So it's great for the season ticket member, right? Because they get to sell their ticket, so they get some money back. And then also a new fan is able to come in and watch a game in that set seat that wasn't previously available to them. And actually, when we've talked to season ticket holders before and we've really surveyed them and had conversations, we have found out that and it's quite a natural thing, right? That a season ticket holder would much prefer, if they're not able to come to a game, they want another passionate fan there cheering on the crowd. So it's kind of a win-win for everyone. Now we can track that journey through our data, and that's the point that I want to come through, because it was potentially underutilized, this functionality, for a few seasons. So we went and saw, okay, right, with the data that we have, when we're combining it together, how can we track what that experience looks like, that journey looks like, and highlight the different moments within our data. So I want to talk through this again to give a bit more of an understanding into what we're looking at. So the first touch point when a season ticket member, in a season ticket member's journey, we'll see that they have, we'll see through the ticketing data, basically a transaction log that comes through. We'll see that the season ticket member has renewed their ticket for the new season. So we see that coming through as a purchase. Now we have access to the stadium attendance data, so we can link that ticket to what's happening when a ticket is scanned through at the stadium and they're able to pass through the security barriers and go inside to watch the game. So we might see in this in this idea that this season ticket member has gone to the first few games of the season. But then potentially, let's say in this scenario, they're unable to attend the next game and they want to list their ticket and allow another fan to buy it. So at this point, we look at the website data coming through. Now we've got a feed set up because we are very focused on engagement. We've got a feed set up so that we can see every single click that happens and attribute that to the unique fan. So we see that in this case, they've logged in to their online ticketing portal and they're clicking around trying to attempt to exchange their tickets, but they can't figure it out. And the session ends without a successful listing event. Now we've got the fan support data. So we see that this fan has contacted the club asking for assistance, saying, please, can you help me exchange this ticket? And we see that actual conversation log going through. We can pull out the data and we see that the fan support agent has told them exactly what they have to do. So going back to the website data, they've logged in, they've navigated the website, and they've successfully listed their ticket. Then through the ticketing data, we see that another fan has purchased that ticket and the season ticket holder is refunded. Perfect. And then the final part of the journey, I guess, is looking back at the stadium attendance, and we see that that ticket has now been scanned and it's attributed and assigned to the new fan, and they've gone to go see their first game at the stadium. Now, we might also have a look at the retail data, check whether they went to the stadium store and bought a home kit, for example, or we might go and look at the food and beverage data and see that they went in and had 5 pints of beer as per the typical fan and a pie. We can see that they might respond to a survey later on saying that they had an amazing experience. So there's a lot of different wider touch points with this journey, but these are probably the 4 core data points that we're looking at within this. And so we analyzed this over the 21-22 season, and we fed back to the business a load of recommendations on pain points that could be made to encourage more fans to exchange their tickets should they be unable to attend, which was great. The website guys, the website developers, they reworked the website to make that journey really seamless, super easy. The marketing teams went and developed a load of communications to them. I think we even built out a model saying who's most likely to not be able to make the next game based on their previous history. And so we did all of this work to try and really encourage people to exchange their tickets if they're unable to go to the game. Now, there was a range of direct impacts with that one, right? So obviously we saw more ticket exchange usage, which was great. It's a good reflection that what we do actually works. Interestingly, much fewer requests coming into fan support on this topic. So our service agents were really able to focus in on some of the bigger pain points because a lot of fans were able to, self-select and easily identify how to complete that journey. We saw more revenue for the club because of the margins that we make. We buy back the season ticket members' ticket for, I think, 1/19 or the value of one game for the season, which might be, say, £30, but then we might sell back the ticket as a normal one-off match day ticket for £40. So we'll make a bit of revenue there, and actually over the season it starts to add up. But the more important one is that money is then returned to our season ticket members as well. There's a load of correlated impacts with that as well, right? So they're not necessarily the only the direct outcome of this piece of work, but it was nice to see that we've got more new or first-time ticket buyers coming to the stadium now that those seats are available. We've got higher attendance now that if a season ticket member is unable to make it, it's not left as an empty seat. We've got a whole new person in that seat. And what we often see as well is the higher the attendance, the better the atmosphere. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea into why we're looking at these different areas of fan data and how we're trying to use it to really make sure that they've got the best experience. The next piece that I want to talk through is a piece of work that we did to really group up our fans into different segments. Now, we use machine learning, we used a clustering methodology to group together some of our transacting fans to really understand the different fan groups that live within our organization, and also help us understand the distribution of revenue. So this is quite important because we've got a range of products that we're selling, and it's the same with a lot of football clubs, right? It's an interesting industry to join because there's a lot of entertainment industry, there's retail industry, there's hospitality industry, there's loads of things going on. But some of our main pieces that we'll get through are tickets that are happening when people are coming in for a general admission tickets. But we've also got a range of more VIP special ticketing offers as well. If somebody wants to, have a sports bar and a free pint with their experience, or if they want to have more of a fine dining experience where they've got their 5-course meal in champagne, or their private boxes as well. On top of that, we've got retail offerings, we've got stadium tours, we've got City Plus, which is our online subscription service. So there's loads of different types of buyers that can be out there because of the range of products. In addition, there's a complexity, right? That we've got a group of season ticket holders who are going in, day out, or week in, week out to the stadium, and they'll be very dedicated, very high transacting fans. But we might have other fans who live further away, outside of Manchester, maybe outside of the country or on the other side of the world, who are unable to make it to a game, but are still transacting online in a very different way and arguably engaging with us in very different ways as well. All the way to the point where we might have, a parent or a friend going on to purchase a home kit for, their friend. It might be very much a one-off piece. They might be not very engaged with the club at all. So it's really important for us to understand the different types of buyers that we have in our database, so we can really tailor our experiences and our product offerings to them. So we looked at the following types of features in order to go through and run this segmentation piece. We looked at transactions. So what are the fans buying? If they're buying retail, is it home kits? Is it pencil cases? If it's tickets, are they buying cheaper general admission? Are they going to the Champions League final? Are they buying hospitality experiences? And how much are they spending? How frequently are they doing this? We looked at engagements. So we looked at what channels they are interacting with. Now, for us, this could vary from browsing the website or browsing the app, to going and interacting with our emails, to even voting on our citizens platform, where you can vote your favorite goal of the year or who your starting lineup would be. And again, looking at how frequently they're interacting with these products. All the way to our geodemographics. So, what is the profile of these fans? Where do they live? As I said before, are they in Manchester, out in the wider area of the UK, in a completely different country? What is their lifestyle like? How old are they? Have they got any affluence indicators? Do they look like they're a family audience with young kids? Anything we can get off the back of that to understand their profile. So we pulled together a lot of we pulled together these features, and we ran something called K-means plus clustering. I did originally have some slides which were really going into the details of it all, but we'll leave that out for now. But we use this algorithm to create eventually 6 buyer segments, and model them up something like what you can see on the screen here. It's kind of a bit rudimentary at the moment, especially we've left the names very basic and uncreative while they're kind of still in development. But I'll dive into a couple to help you understand a little bit more about the different types of transacting fans we have in our database. So the first group that we've called established members are a lot of the traditional fans, right? They're long-term, older fans, quite often based in the Northwest, in the greater Manchester area. And they've been known to the club for 7 years on average. Our database, for context, only goes back 11 years in terms of when you could be brought into it. So actually, a lot of these would have been with the club for a long, long time. So, very established Manchester-based fans. Now, when we look at indicators of revenue, we can see that these are the highest value fans, right? They're purchasing a lot of tickets. 95% have purchased our general admission tickets, and a lot of them have purchased these hospitality ticket experiences as well as some of our other membership items. And we actually see 25% of them are season ticket members as well, which gives you a good idea of how engaged and what kind of fan they are. And that translates to when we look at the size compared to the revenue. So this, and when we're looking at this over the past 2 seasons worth of data, And so established members make up 19% of the buyers, but 58% of the revenue, right? And that's quite classic on, I guess, a business intelligence point of view, that you have a relatively small proportion of buyers who are the super loyal, super engaged ones, who end up spending and accounted for a decent proportion of the revenue. So these guys are a very important group. And as a football club, we always go beyond just the revenue. We always look at how much they're actually engaging with us as well. Not only because it's our job as a football club to really, give the fans a good content, but also because we can actually monetize engagement as well by showing a partner ad on top of their content. But we see that these guys are very engaged, way more engaged than the average fan, and also engaging with our email and our citizens, our voting system as well. So in comparison, the second group that we pulled out, we've called the new match day, but they're much newer fans. If you look in the top right, they've been known to club for only 5 months on average. So a very different group of fans. They are still engaged, but less engaged. They're a lot younger, and a big proportion of them also come from outside of the UK, right? We've actually got more who are international than UK based. And that's reflected with, although a decent amount are buying tickets, it probably is for the first time. And we've got a lot of other ones who are actually purchasing retail, so purchasing kits online probably, or who are subscribing to our City Plus video streaming content. And as a result, this 15% of buyers only account for 7% of revenue, right? So the much lower level of mean spend. But that doesn't mean that they're less important, right? It just means they're a very different type of fan there. And the fact that they're actively engaging with us is super interesting. So it's our next job to implement the marketing strategy suggestions for each of these segments, right? So we'll look at what are they engaging with, especially this new match day group. What is it that they're engaging with? Are they engaging with, news articles more, or are they engaging with videos of drunk Jack Grealish celebrating the treble, which I imagine that they are. What else can we do to continue to move and develop these relatively new fans into much more mature, eventually maybe season ticket members? So we want to track these segments through time. This is kind of the takeaway, that we're going to look at it and track these segments through time. We want to be able to have a look at each season and say, okay, there was this many new fans that came in 21-22. This is how many new were added to that pot, and this is how many of those groups went on to become your members, your something else, your group Cs. So really understanding how our fan groups are moving through time. Now that was on the whole idea of all of the transacting fans. We've did a separate piece which was very much focused on just the ticketing fans. So really homing in on the fans who are visiting the Etihad Stadium. And again, the idea was to help figure out which fans are most valuable to us and help guide what optimizations we make and how we develop the experience on a match day. Our research team actually went away, conducted a load of fan interviews and surveys, and pulled out some ideas of who they think the different personas could be. They then came to our team, and we looked in the data and validated, like, are these actually, is the theoretical actually being reflected in the data? For a large part, we found yes. We found a few small groups where they weren't actually as significant as we had thought they would be. And we found another big group which actually had not appeared or was considered by the research team. And that's just an interesting piece around, the difference between, I guess, a qualitative research methodology versus what happens when you plug the data into an unsupervised machine and get it to think through everything. So yeah, we went away, and I think overall we developed 11 matchday fan personas, which we've kind of visualized here in this diagram. And so the y-axis here is showing how much revenue they made from that season. The x-axis is looking at how large that pot is, so what proportion of the ticket buyers they account for. And then the bubble sizes you see here are indicating the average spend per fan. So you can see some examples where those bubble sizes really differ because there's a very different level of spending for these groups. So I'll pull out a few of them. We'll dive into their profiles as well. Casual Chris is what we called the most common fan segment. They had a relatively modest spend of £108. business entertainers, you can see right on that left side, but with a huge bubble that doesn't actually fit on the chart. They're very small in number, less than 1%, but account for, I think, 18% of all revenue. So we'll dive into those in a minute. And then at the top center there, you've got your season ticket holders, your traditional Terries, who are 20% of ticket buyers, 30% of ticket revenue. So they're just generally a very big, very important group within the ticketing world. So diving into the profiles, this is our casual Chris, right? And these were made with an idea that you could say casual Chris, and you get the picture, you get the image of what they look like immediately. So Chris here represents a large segment by volume. We kind of think of them as 32-year-old on average, and they actually live outside of the Northwest, so probably from the rest of the UK. They're probably quite passionate fans. We see a lot of engagement with them, but they're only able to attend, once or twice a season. And therefore, the overall ticket spend across the year just isn't that high. But they're a very important group of fans. There's a lot of people who are coming from outside of Manchester in just for a couple games a season. So they're clearly like a very important group that we're going to continue to grow. And also that we want to continue and bring them back, go from once or twice a season to 2 or 3 times a season to 3 or 4 times a season. So how do we make sure that's achievable? Now, on the contrast, going back to the big bubble that we saw before, we've got our business entertainers, right, who are 0.1% of match goers actually, and make up 18% of revenues. And you can see why that is if you look at their mean ticket spend. £21,000 on average they're spending on tickets, right? Obviously, there's not many people who are doing that. But these are our hospitality experience buyers, and generally for business purposes as well. So they'll buy up a private box, or they'll buy up loads of seats in our super expensive champagne fine dining experience. And it's very much, they're not that engaged with us. It's a business transaction, right? They want to make the best impression possible to the guests that they are entertaining on business. A very different nature of fan, right? It's one that we always talk about and debate about, but a super important one when you look at the quantity that they're spending. So how can we develop an experience that's going to be very separate, right, for business entertainers as it is for casual Chris, as it is for our traditional Terries, our season ticket holders? Actually, I quite like the writing that the team put up here around traditional Terry. So they're a traditional City fan. They've been at going to the club since Main Road, the stadium we had before Etihad, and had a very traditional outlook on football. They don't like mobile ticketing. They don't like VAR. They don't want any of that. But they are season ticket holders. They come continually to the game. They're quite engaged with us as well, but they've got their own routines. And the reason why I highlight that is because it's important that when we are, designing different areas of the stadium, we're doing that with these stadium personas in mind. So, we might be making sure that we've got a new area in the stadium that's super exciting, innovative, it's digital focused, you can do everything on your app, you can pre-order, your pint of beer to come straight to your seat, something like that. But we need to bear in mind, how does that experience then look for our traditional Terries? Right, like, is this something that they can engage with? Is it something that's actually feasible and achievable for them? Maybe we decide to put that in a separate part of the stadium. Maybe we just really work on that journey and make sure that the traditional Terries will understand how to go through the system, right? So that all the developments that we're doing to the stadium have to bypass through these stadium personas, and we really have to think about the groups of fans that we're optimizing for. So that's a bit about like the way that we group up some of our fans and how we can use machine learning to really help us understand the nature of our fans. So going back to, I guess, the diagram that I presented at the beginning around our team, right? We had that new data ops engineering side of our team, and they're very much focused on productionalization, which I'll talk to you a bit about here because it's quite a key part of what we're doing within our team. So we're very much putting in the effort to control and automate our data processes, and ensuring that we'll always be able to efficiently deliver high quality insights. So in essence, productionization is, as it says here, right, deploying a process into an automated production environment. So when we go away and work on a project, we'll naturally create a specific piece of insight or a solution. And we want that to always be accessible and automatically updated. So we will put that into production, which might also help make it, ready for other teams. And as a result, we're naturally working in this kind of design, develop, deploy model, where we'll go design the solution. We need somebody who's able to then develop that into a production-ready version of it, and then someone else who can, or a team member who can deploy that into production as well. So it's all about making sure that's reusable, and everything that we're doing is reusable. So yeah, we productionize our codes for reusability, but also reliability, and to make sure everything we do is scalable as well. So diving into some of the benefits and the concepts that we're using, which again can be applied to any kind of data science field, I reckon, across whatever industry is chosen. Portability, so not spending much time rewriting code. Right? You go away, you design a solution, someone comes back or someone else wants to come in and work on a very similar piece of work, they have to rewrite the code. Someone else wants to work on something else and rewriting the code. That can't be a process which is very functional within our data science team. So if you automate, if you've produced that piece of code, we want that to be saved, logged, automated, and reapplied to our data, so that someone else can just come in, pick up that data, and then work on the insight from there. Just pick up where they left off. Maintenance. So I saw a really good quote, which was time spent on maintainability reduces time spent on actual maintenance. And I think that's quite a key one here. We're building in processes to make sure our data is continually validated and continually checked. And it means that when an analyst comes back, needs to use a piece of data, they know that they've got the most up-to-date, accurate information there that's already been validated. Scale. So quite often, if an analyst in any team will produce a piece of insight, they'll present it back and they'll get loads of questions, right, around, okay, now what? Can you look at this? Or what if you added this element to the solution? And if you're not building it in a scalable way, it means that every time you have that, you're going to have to rewrite your code. You're going to have to really manually go in and pull out data from one piece and then mess around with it in Excel or whatever you have, and then present that in a series of slides, put it all back together again. No one wants to keep repeating that work. And if you come with that framework where it is effort to repeat the work, it means that whenever someone wants more insight, you're coming with a negative mindset. So we want to always be yes-anding it, right? We want to encourage that growth. And we do that by building in this framework and making sure that we've got all the data we can get in, so that any kind of follow-up questions and further analysis that we want to do is scalable and can encourage business growth. And then lastly, but very importantly, trust. So, we're embedding quality control into that. When we're developing anything, we've verified that logic that we've used with a whole load of other teams. So we know that what we're doing is correct. We're also not then, I guess, replicating the logic or trying to have the same two different analysts working through data from the whole pipeline, rebuilding logic in slightly different ways that ends up to different results. We've got it all controlled and verified in one format. I'm not going to spend too much time, don't worry, on our underlying data architecture. In essence, we're using a data lakehouse, which gives us the benefit of being able to work with semi-structured data. For example, the area we talked about before with the help or fan support function has a lot of text conversations. We can look into that data, pull it out, and produce what are the key themes and topics around that. But in the same way, we've got our data warehouse built in on top of that structure. So we've got a nice clean transaction logs where our ticketing data might come through. So it means that we can use the same data platform for both business intelligence and machine learning. And this is what we call the data lakehouse. And we're using something called medallion architecture to govern this data. So our data design pattern is really trying to organize all of our data in a way that it's incrementally improving the structure and quality through every layer of the architecture. So we're bringing the data into our raw bronze area, right? So it might be like 10 different tables from our ticketing system. We'll move that into our silver layer when we're making it a format that can be used in the data platform. And we're cleaning it up, we're deduping rows, we're applying business logic. And then eventually we move it to the gold layer where we're really aggregating that. We might make it, join it on with other data sources, make it one nice business level aggregate data source that we can use for a specific problem. And that can be used for business intelligence, it can be used for ML. And it means that when someone comes in, wants to work on a project, they've got the curated data right there so they can just focus on all of the exciting stuff. So it's a big effort from our team, right, to do all of this, probably replicated by the time that I just spent talking through it, and also what we saw in terms of how the team has developed through the couple seasons. Is it, really that useful? So the final piece of insight I want to talk you through is kind of reflecting that and answering that question. So you might have seen this image a few months ago, but it was announced that Manchester City would be developing the Etihad Stadium. We're adding in some more seats, an extra level to our North Stand. And we're also adding on what you can see here, right, as this big, fun, shiny, sparkly entertainment district kind of thing with restaurants and hotels and hospitality, and probably the most important, a covered fan area so that they don't get rained on all of the time. And with a big piece of work like this, it's obviously very sensitive. It's obviously got a lot of senior stakeholders really bought into it. So we were tasked to very quietly go away and look into our data and develop all of the insights to make sure that we're really making data-driven decisions. So making sure that what we're actually showcasing here and thinking about is feasible, and making sure that we know exactly how we're going to orchestrate the development. How are we going to develop the different areas? What are we going to choose to put in there? So this resulted in 4 analysts at the time were given 2 weeks. Yep, just 2 weeks to develop the following insights. So we looked at the trajectory of demand for ticketing, for the different current and proposed ticketing products. So, was there an increase in demand for general admission tickets, or were people more focused on going to fine dining, premium spaces, even sports bar kind of experiences? We also wanted to look at the level of circulation across the different areas. So were people going from South Stand Level 1 to the Colin Bell Stand Level 2? Were they moving from a hospitality area to another type of one, a sports bar to a private box, and then back down to South Stand Level 1 in the general admission areas? Again, to help us understand whether our current fans that would come to the stadium would be interested in these different experiences and whether it was viable. And thirdly, looking at the profile of our existing fans. So how has this developed over time? Are we getting older, younger audiences coming in? Are they more family orientated, high affluence, students? Like who's coming to the game, and how is that changing over time, and how is that specifically changing for each of the different types of ticketing products that we're offering? So it's a lot, right? And again, let me reiterate, 2 weeks to pull out a massive thing which had to be trustworthy and presented back to chiefs, right? Fortunately, we had what we needed there. We had the data already prepared with accurate and up-to-date information. We had a nice, clean ticketing transaction log, which was encompassing all of our ticketing products and areas ready to use. We had our fan level attributes, pulling data from across the business that could immediately be used to profile and say they're aged this, they've bought this many retail products, they're this engaged with us, and they are estimated to be a family audience. Again, we look at these ideas, right? We'd had the portability because the business logic transformations had already been made to the data. We didn't have to go in and we didn't have to go in and recreate something from scratch. It was already there with the right transformations. We knew it was maintained, the data was up to date and had already been validated. We had the complete data sources there. It's all been curated, so we were scalable. We could work on this very high level across all of the different ticketing areas. And we had the trust, right? We had already pulled out figures. We'd already checked the logic that we were using through years of working with the ticketing stakeholders around this. So it had already been accepted. So what this meant was that we were really able to go away and after 2 weeks deliver a huge amount of reliable and really high impact insights within 2 weeks. I'm really proud of the team for being able to work through this, but I'm also really proud of the data engineering team who are able to set up a platform that enables us to tackle the breadth and the really detailed level of insight that we need. Analysts are much happier when they're able just to go in, work on a creative solution, and just build a model without having to rework all of the data and pull it in from scratch. So this is why we invest so much time and effort into producing such a sophisticated data platform, because we know the benefit is that without it, we would never be able to produce this level of detailed insights within a time period. So that's really all from my side today. I just wanted to also highlight that obviously we're the fan side of the football data science team. We have a football insights team as well who are doing data science, but again, they're using a lot of the similar designs and concepts as we are, or at least developing that framework in order to make sure that they can maximize their success. So whether you're going away and you're looking at player trading, so understanding what the most valuable players to buy in or sell would be. If we're looking over the breadth of the 11 clubs that we have with CFG, if we're making the decision over what would be the best course of action for a specific player to go, should they go from Troyes to Girona to Man City, and in which order? And generally producing the visualizations to enable a lot of the player staff to have all of the information they need on health or player performance as possible to make the best decisions. It works with the same concept. It works with the same platform. Making sure that you've got the underlying data structure there is so key to making sure that you can deliver this in a really reliable, scalable, automated way. So thank you. That's all I'm going to talk about today. Thanks for bearing in mind all of the imagery from the treble celebrations. I am kind of have to put all of these pieces in there. But yeah, happy to take any follow-up questions on that one. Thanks for hearing me out.
Thank you, Toby. I think it's been incredible to actually see the impact that data can have on that side of a football club, because a lot of the time we always think about the actual game, no? And I think it's important to understand how the data influence an institution to such level. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise. And as you said, let's open some time for questions. But before we do that, I wanted to mention to all the people watching, which we have a lot of numbers, the assistance has gone over the roof. So we're going to give 10 minutes for questions, because at 7:30, as you guys know, we have the round table, and we would like to make sure that we run on time with the agenda we have for the day. So if you have questions and you're not able to get them across to Toby, we apologize in advance for that. But yeah, we are on a schedule here, so we're gonna let it open now. We are welcoming people to come into the room to ask directly to Toby, but also use the YouTube box to ask questions. And as soon as I see any, I'll be happy to ask those questions to Toby. So let's see if someone jumps on any moment, and we'll ask those questions. Many people are actually asking about the fact if they weren't able to be at the beginning of the video, and they were asking if it's possible to see the replay. So I want to say yes. If you sign up for the session today, you'll be able to watch the replay afterwards. So don't worry if you miss out some parts of the presentation. It's absolutely fine. A lot of people are thanking you here, Toby, for your presentation. They are valuing all the insights that you share with us, which is really good. If I wanted to also ask something from the point of view of, well, we'll get some more questions going. Do you guys, from a point of view of how important data is and how teams are bringing it into account in the last decade, especially. How is this side of data in general of your knowledge in other football clubs? Because it seems from the outside that Man City is actually doing very well in every aspect of the club as a City group. But do you think that is something that many other, I guess, top clubs in Europe are doing, or are you guys living in that sense? Or it's quite interesting to see that side.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we have naturally through this process, we've reached out and talked and actually had some knowledge sharing workshops with different clubs, particularly Premier League clubs. I think we're in a City are in a very good position at the front of the market relatively. I think it's fortunate that we've got a lot of high-end stakeholders that came into the business that were really interested in making data-driven decisions. However, when we've talked to other football clubs in the Premier League, we can see that they are on the exact same journey as we are, right? Because we know it's a good solution. We know that this is the best way that we can really optimize what we're doing at the club. So I think it's not just a City thing. I think we're particularly in the UK doing very, very well on that. I do know there are other football organizations as well, particularly Real Madrid are very strong in that area at the same time. But a lot of clubs are moving in this direction.
Thank you very much for that. And we have the first question, the first person. So I'm going to welcome Pedro to the room with us here. Pedro, good afternoon, evening, morning.
Good afternoon. Hi, David. Nice to meet you again. Thank you, Toby, for the conference. It was really, really interesting. Such a top organization as Citigroup is. So I just wanted to ask about a bit. I know that you use coding languages like Python, of course. Use machine learning techniques. But are you also in Citigroup considering to add some features like low-code technology? You mentioned before that you want to use reusable objects. I guess that you are talking about maybe interfaces, process that are behind all the interfaces you have. Do you have the plan to add some features like low-code to make it more agile, more, I don't know?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a great question and a very important one. It is something that we are focusing on, and particularly over the last week, it's been a busy day. So we are definitely putting a lot of effort into that side of things. We want to make sure that the business is able to really self-serve their analytics solutions, right? So as you said, at the moment, we're using Databricks and coding in Python or PySpark in that, which is quite complicated to just casually pick up. But we're developing reports in Power BI as an example, and setting up a lot of our data mart concepts within an area that you can a user is going to be able to go into Power BI and filter off, drag and drop to create very dynamic insights and reports. We don't want to be a bottleneck, and as much as we can, get other teams doing our job for us, the better. So we'll put in all the effort we can do to make sure other teams are able to, both serve their insight requirements, but also, serve their personalization requirements and make sure they can pull out the audiences that they need for specific personalized marketing campaigns as well.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to ask that because I work in a local company that is also based in London. It's called Appian. I don't know if you know the name. It's an American company, but it's also based in London. And I see that most of the clients are from banks or, I don't know, big companies that are not related to the world of sport. Because I think that in sport, also there is a growing open minding about software and technologies. There are still a bit of, I don't trust a lot about this, no? And I don't want to spend my money from my club in that feature. So yeah, it's really good to see that companies like Citigroup are working on it. And the other question was, Citigroup is looking all over the world for players. I don't know, as you have many teams now in the group, but the main focus is on Manchester City. Manchester City, at the end, is very difficult to reach the first team. So, which is your strategy when trying to find players from some minor leagues? No.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, going back to your previous point on, what tools are typically used by financial companies as well, I think that's a really key one, that as a football industry, we need to start really looking outside of football to wider industries. I think one of our kind of close teams that we work with traditionally more associated with finance teams as well, right? So using test technologies across industries is really important for football. In terms of the footballing one and how we go about selecting players, I'm afraid I can't really answer too much in detail on that side of things. I'm way more on the business and fan side of things than I am on the decision making of football. I'll just help them set up the data.
Okay. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much, Pablo, Toby.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you for participating. And we have next Joao Domingos. So we're going to give him in the room. Hello, Joao.
Hello, nice to meet you. Toby, really good presentation. It was an absolute pleasure. I have lived in Madrid before, and as a football UFAB coach, I used to go to see some games as well. And in big clubs such as Man City, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, normally you see that in a game day, you have a lot of fans, like you said, kind of tourists, foreigners and everything that are visiting the city and want to see a Man City game. Don't you think in that perspective is a bit of a risk at the same time to you allow so many tourist fans into the Man City stadium, losing a bit the Man City chemistry inside the stadium. At the same time, strategies that Man City uses to allow that, but at the same time maintain the chemistry inside the stadium. So if you can answer that, to be very, very interesting. Thank you very much.
No problem. Another great question. Thanks, Joao. I think it's an important focus that the club is always looking at, right? Because we want to get as many new fans in to have this new experience that they can do, while also we need to reward and maintain this, strong, powerful, traditional Manchester atmosphere. And again, kind of the way that we're doing this is through some of the segmentation that we talk through, right? If we understand what type of fans we have in our different areas, we can make sure we allocate our different ticketing products accordingly. So we can keep, the area behind the goal, the South Stand level 1 is like die-hard areas. Like you can only get in there if you've, been to 7 matches in the last 10 games or something along those sides. You have to show that you've got your ticket points, show that you've been a season ticket holder for years and do these kind of concepts. Whereas maybe for some of the other areas around the business, that around the stadium, it's much easier to get into, or we have a different category of requirements to get into that. And we would adjust the atmosphere and the experience that they have in that area accordingly, right? Like, in one side they might just want pies and pints, and another side they might want vegan wraps or something like that, right? So it is a completely different kind of person, and we need to keep that in mind as we're tailoring the experience. I think overall, though, there's a lot of work, especially this season, that a lot of the team have done to make sure that the atmosphere before the match is ready. There's like light show and lights, and it's all very dramatic in the wintertime especially. So just to try and bring everyone together and get on board with supporting the team.
So if I understand, you try a mix, and also it's a bit like I see a lot of football clubs trying to use the NBA strategy, a lot of show at the same time during the event. So that makes a lot of sense, and you combine the best of both worlds. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Joao. Thank you so much.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Well, Toby, thank you so much. We got many more questions that unfortunately won't be having time to answer. We got people in the chat box like Stephen, Rafa Guillén, Harun Nawid. Unfortunately, guys, not time for that much. And for us now, Toby is really thanking you again for your time, for your expertise, for your presentation. I think people have been delighted to have you and listen to what you were telling us. So thank you very much, and we hope to do some events like this in the future again.
Thank you. It's been wonderful to be here. Thank you very much for having me and listening to my story.
Thank you.
Toby.
Have a good evening, Toby. Bye-bye. Well, David, and now, David and everyone else, it's time for the roundtable. So this is pretty much just started. That presentation was amazing. But now, changing the data analytics into the game side of things, we have an open class and a roundtable called Data Analysis in Professional Football. And we have 3 of the top directors of football in Europe competitions. So we're going to start introducing them. one by one. So we have Victor.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome. Victor Horta, Director of Football at Sevilla FC. Welcome.
What a difference with my previous there with the sun and the 43 degrees outside, respect the north of your side and always was cloudy. What a change for me. I think I now even it's too much.
No, you must have the aircon on, otherwise it's just impossible.
Yeah. What does there?
Awesome. And we're going to introduce the other two speakers we have today. So obviously Victor Horta is going to be one of them. And then we're going to welcome Stuart Webber with us, the Director of Football at Norwich City. Welcome,
Hi,
Stuart.
good evening. Hi, how are you doing?
Nice to have you as well. Thank you for being with us today. It's such a pleasure for us and an honor to have you today in our roundtable.
Thanks for the invite. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, we got Dan Ashworth, Director of Football at Newcastle United. Dan, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us here today. It's again a pleasure to have you all with us today. And I think I will only speak for myself, but for everyone watching today, we are really ready for you guys. They're going to be all ears, and we can think of anyone better than you guys to guide us a little bit into what data analytics in professional football is and entitles, and we're all yours now.
Okay, thank you for my two colleagues to accept my invitation. I am going to be leader of the round table. For me, it's absolutely a pleasure. Was of the two colleagues that I learned a lot in my period in England. For me, both are absolutely a reference in this war and in the English football, that the role of director of football was a bit slow respect another countries, respect Italy, respect Spain, and absolutely with the success of these two references for me is one of the most important situations, and now they are authentic leaders in there. My first question for both, in my previous time, like a director of football, I think the big evolution in football was in the start when I started in Seville, now back, was be the first in the information. Now it's absolutely impossible be the first because the information is quick, is democratic, even it's cheap. One player scored one goal with 16 years old in championship or in second division in Holland, and we can monitor really quickly in Twitter 2 minutes later. Now be first, it's impossible. Now for me, the challenge in the scouting department, it's convert all this information in useful knowledge for the clubs. And I want to know how you can make of this challenge a daily challenge and how your strategy in these kind of things. First Stuart, later Dan, like you prefer.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think to be first now is near on impossible because even if it's not a football club who's first, it's an agent or it's a 12-year-old whiz kid on Twitter or whatever. So I think, like you say, the excitement of going to a game back in the day and you were the only scout at some youth cup game and thinking, oh my God, I think we found a player here, or in the middle of Brazil. I think, like you say, that seems to be over now. So I think, in my opinion anyway, that the skill of it now is accepting that being first is not going to be there. It's about what then at that point is actually the right deal for the player. What's your tipping point? Is he the right player for you? Because he could be a boy wonder or whatever, or it could look a great value deal, but it still might not be. He might not be a good deal for you. So what's a good deal for you at Seville or down at Newcastle might be a bad deal for us, and vice versa. So I think it's how we try and do it is we try and take all of this knowledge and data and all the different things, but try and keep at the focus and at the forefront is, but what is a good business for us? What is a good transfer for us? What is a good player for us? And almost take out all of that noise, because a great left back for us might be a really bad left back for your two teams with how you play or with your targets for your competition or whatever it might be. So I think it's how you use all of the information to not so much be first anymore, but to make the best decision for you and not almost a competition of, you know, what's right. And I also think so certainly if we're talking around data, is what we're trying to get to the point is, and we're at the infancy of trying to build these models and, you know, bring in the experts of this, of which I'm certainly not one, because these guys are super clever, right? But how can we get to the predictive stage of, okay, you take this player now, you do this work with him, you give him this experience, you give him this opportunity, and the end result will be this player. And I think that's going to be the game changer for us within the industry is who can find that quickest. Because then I think that's being first to a player of what his potential and what his ability could be in 5 years, not in 5 minutes. And I think that's the area that we're very deep in at the minute is, and this is a project we've been doing for 2 years. So and it'll definitely outsee my time at the club when it starts to come to fruition. But I think learning from our friends in America, who are obviously very good in this area around American sports and data, that's the bit is where can we get the predictive stuff, which says you put this player, we sell, Teemu Pukki goes, we have these 5 players. If we put this one in the team, the model says that we'll actually gain a further 10 points, or we put this one in the team and we can only gain 2 points. Or if we put this player in the team, his value should increase by 20%, this one by 30%, to then make that decision. And I think that's where we're trying to go.
And your opinion?
Not too dissimilar to Stuart's, really. One of the best ways of explaining it that I heard and sort of used on a regular basis is the use of data really is only any good if the experts who are reading it can understand it. So the analogy would be if you're working in the stock market in the middle of Madrid or in the middle of London or the middle of New York, and I could go and stand next to an experienced stock market trader and I would get the same information. So both coming through the screens is inflation, the price of oil, the price of gold, dollar versus the euro, dollar versus the pound. We're getting the same information, but it would mean nothing to me. But my experienced stock market trader would be able to make sense of that data and be able to make a decision off that data to buy and sell that stock or that currency. So you could have 2 people receiving exactly the same data, exactly the same information. It would mean nothing to me at all. And it would mean something to the experienced trader. And I think sometimes we get too overpowered with the data and this model can tell us this, this, and this. It's actually what you can gain from it. And your experience as a sporting director, as a scout, as a manager can bring that. And as Stuart says, specifically then to your football team and your model and the age group you're looking for, or whatever it may be.
It's one thing that is really always in our battle internally in the clubs, no? I think Moneyball, the film, create a strange war between the old style, the recruitment, the human expertise eye, and the new style with the data, with all the process there, no? I don't know why it's create this war around this industry, because in our industry, even the old style scout is really useful for us. And I don't believe a lot in this war, because for me, Stuart was really right in saying that I never find a good player with bad data, and I never found a player proposed for the data department. Perhaps we don't have a really report that the scouting department says absolutely horrible. I never found out, no? And obviously the key is how is this player for us? That is the most important suitable for us, no? Then I want to discuss about this war. If you in your department create any try find the word incoherence about players or data, and your all scouts feel a bit insecure when the data is there, or you deal with that in a normal process, no? Because now for me it's more used to use the data in the scouting departments, and even the old style use the data to make better reports, no?
Yeah, I think again, it's little knowledge is dangerous, right? And I think we're all now living in a world with different owners and different things who it's easy to chuck out comments around Moneyball or look what this club have done with data, etc. And it's back to Dan's point of, you know, the experts understanding it. And, you know, I think the 3 of us have been brought up in this industry in the same sort of eras and gone through this sort of growth in this area. And we'd probably all sit here and say we're not experts. We're having to learn along the way as best we can. And probably the biggest strength is actually knowing what we don't know, and trying to trust the experts. And everyone wants this silver bullet, don't they? They want this, machine where they can just tap in. We need a left back, and they find you a left back for £1 million that you can sell for 40 million in a year after he's got you to the Champions League final. And that would be great if that happens. But I think what's dangerous with it, Victor, to your question, is exactly that, is when you take the old with the new and the old tries to pretend to understand the new, or the new maybe tries to pretend to understand the old. I think it's, again, everything. There's room for both. And I think we need both because, you still need, in my opinion, you still need people who have had that experience over many years of good signings, bad signings, seeing the signs which maybe data can't tell you around somebody's personality or someone settling within a certain area, or, that's not always necessarily possible from a computer. Again, all of them things can help, but, data can't tell you that. Data can't necessarily tell you that, this guy's got incredible data, but actually the profile we need is something quite different in terms of his personality to sort of help us. So I think we've got to, yes, respect the two and where we can merge them, but I think also massively respect that there's a place for both. And I think there'll always be a place for both. I think, in terms of us as people who have to make final decisions often on recruiting players, or certainly be part of that, I'm not sure you can ever replace that gut feeling when you're with somebody and it feels right. And sometimes that might go against the data. Most of the time it goes with it, but sometimes you have to do it. But then we have to make them calls. It's a bit like for the head coach when he's picking his starting 11 for Saturday's game. Some of our data team will disagree and go, he should play this, this, and this. But it's like, yeah, but you haven't seen how this guy's trained all week. His attitude's not quite there. He's having a problem at home. You're not the guy who's got 25 players and he's got to pick 11. So have a level of empathy. And I think that's the thing we try and talk around with our data guys, because often they're younger, often they're super enthusiastic and super ambitious. And it's a bit like understanding the word empathy but yeah, the guys who have to make them decisions to buy, sell, pick a team, drop a player, of understanding that then we're dealing with humans and we're not dealing with just a number. So I think it's, but yeah, I think it's super dangerous if you get people who don't understand it, trying to understand it, going, I've looked at his data online and he's definitely a good right winger. Yeah, but you don't understand the data, because I don't understand the data. So I'm pretty sure that you can't in that case.
Dan?
Yeah, so thank you, Stuart, for saying that. I was in the same era as you. I'm a lot older than you two, for the record.
I've got to be kind.
You've taken 10 years off me. Thank you. Yeah, so it's really interesting. So I had a big gap in my knowledge of data. So my first sporting director job was at West Bromwich Albion a long time ago. And data wasn't really part of football then. I then moved to the National Association, worked for England, the England Football Association, for 6 years. And because you never recruit a player in the National Association, you never have to sign anyone, right? You borrow them for 10 days. If they're not any good, you send them back. If they're good, you pick them again. And with England in particular, all of the players were playing in the Premier League. We hardly had any players that were playing outside of England. So our market was very small and right in front of our nose. So we didn't really utilize data. So I joined Brighton as sporting director. And that was one of the reasons I joined Brighton, because they were famous for their data. And Tony Bloom is the owner of Brighton, and he's a genius. And his data is a betting model data rather than a player prediction model. So there's a bit of both in it. But again, I suppose back to my first point, it took me probably about 12 to 18 months to really understand what that data was telling us. And we ended up coming up with a system, a long-winded way of answering your question, Victor, that we just went with the 3 traffic lights we used. So what we tried to do is get 3 greens in each of the traffic lights. So traffic light number 1 was data. So we're trying to get a green on the data, not an amber or a red. We're trying to get a green on the subjective, which is the scouting reports and the human feel, as Stuart said, for the player. And then a green with the final decision maker. Now, depending on where that player was going and depending on the makeup of your club, the final decision maker might be your sporting director, it might be your head coach, it might be your academy manager if they're going into the academy. But we would try and get greens. So if we've got green data, green subjective scouting reports, green from the head coach, brilliant, fantastic. Now, unfortunately, life isn't that simple. So invariably, there's an amber somewhere along that system. So I don't know, the head coach might be saying, I don't know, Danny, he doesn't defend the far post well enough for Stuart's fullback. I need some more evidence. Okay, well, let me get you some more evidence. Now, evidence might come from data. That evidence might come from video clips. That evidence might come from scouting reports. That evidence might come from live games. Or the coach might be right. And actually, I can't find any evidence. You're right. He's not ready. He's not suited to us. So it was just quite a simple way. We just tried to bring the three together. And the only other thing I would say is I read a brilliant book once, not that long ago, called Seeing What Others Don't by Gary Klein. And it was basically the opening chapter is two policemen are driving along in a car, right? There's a young rookie policeman and an old experienced policeman. They pull up alongside a traffic light and the old experienced policeman looks into this new BMW next to and he says, that car's stolen. So he says, right, okay, so run the number plate. So they run the number plate. Sure enough, the car's stolen. Now, the young cop didn't know anything, wouldn't have a feel for it. But the experienced cop, when they quizzed him afterwards and said, how did you know? He said, you know what? I wasn't sure. There was just something not right. And he tracked it back down to the guy was smoking and put this cigarette next to, or like on the by a new leather seat. He said, if it was his car, he would never treat it like that. And the point being, we shouldn't underestimate some gut instinct and some natural feel and some experience in making key decisions, as well as our data and analysis. And I think that's probably my really long-winded way of answering your question, Victor.
It is part of my issue when, obviously, where we are signing a new player, we need to try and minimize the risk, no? Is the key, no? Because we have the responsibility with the board, obviously the profile with our head coach, no? And I feel now that minimize the risk in terms of technical, it's only work. We have, and for me, why Scout changed the football in this side. Why? Because we can analyze all the videos before, all the actions, all the air challenge, all the weak foot actions, or the coverage with and without the ball. Then we feel really comfortable of that because it's time, it's games, it's scouting, no? There, even in the physical perspective, that for me was, to be honest, a big experience in England, no? Because when I arrived to England in Middlesbrough, my Spanish eye more times give value to transition, technical things that after 6 months, I remember my first 6 months in Middlesbrough, I watched live League 2, League 1, Championship, Premier League. I say, what is going on with the center backs putting there, making there? I said, wow, I need to start to understand that the physical point of view, the transition, the quick transition, know a lot of horizontal football, and I need to educate my eye. But even now with Skill Corner, the physical data, I think I feel more comfortable to take the decisions, no? There, obviously, we discuss a lot now, and incredible history about the policeman is really perspective of that. It's about the psychological point of view that say, wow, this player, we make these first interviews that is like the first dates. All the people, it's amazing in this first interview between the director of football and the player. All the people looks incredible. All the people is really good training. All the people always is going to be there, then later looks different. But for me, my real scare on this transition of minimize the risk, and I put this issue on the table, it's about the transition. What I describe like transition, no? You look the player in your country, in other country, by example, Stuart, the last two signings he made with Gabriel Sara and Marcelino Núñez in another continent, playing in a shape with a coach, with another mates, with another even style of football, with another style of refereeing, with another mates around, and you need to take this player and put in your team and try predict that success, like we discussed before, like even in Brighton, we know was really, really clear about that. And obviously for me, and I want to talk about that, more time I use the data to try create comparisons, but obviously I remember one book that impressed me a lot of Philip Taylor, Super Forecasters, that it's like you say, how is the human side to take decisions, no? Super Forecaster talk about people that even the governments give portfolios about take decisions about economical decision of country or military situations, and even they don't know nothing about that, but they analyze and predict comments that was successful, no? And then obviously it's the moment that I try and find security in the data. By example, when you discuss with head coach about a number 8 that he need to steal balls in the opposite file and opposite side, and I found the data between these 4, one is more clear to make that. But it's true that still I need the human side to take the decision, no? How gives you the data more security? Because me personal is in this part, in the transition that I try find in the perhaps the last moment of the process between 2, 3, 4 players, finding this situation more security to take the decision. Is the same in your case, or is different?
You can go first this time, Dan.
Victor, I'd probably go back to a couple of things before that. I think, again, you have to understand the values and the fabric of the club that you're working for. So back to your example of moving from Spain to Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough is different from Sevilla. Leeds is different. Leeds is different to Middlesbrough. Norwich is different to Huddersfield for Stuart. Brighton and Newcastle are very different clubs. And I think one of our roles in recruitment, sporting director, is to understand the DNA of your club. And the example I often use in London is that Millwall and Fulham are 7 miles apart geographically, right? So from Fulham to Millwall is 7 miles across London. And those people who listening who know a little bit about English football, they are worlds apart from culture of what their supporters expect, the sort of the history of the club, etc. Now, one's not better or worse than the other one. But if you think that the type of players and what works at Fulham will work at Millwall, I think you're going to have a shock. And I think if you think that what works at Millwall and the type of players and staff that will work at Fulham, you're also in for a shock. So again, it's about understanding the data, understanding what that's telling you, and understand how that fits with what you're trying to achieve at your football club. And if you are from you're a working class, hardworking town like Middlesbrough, Leeds, then probably you need a different type of player that the supporters can connect to. Barcelona need a different sort of player, So we've all got to get that context in what we're trying to do for our football club and just try and build the DNA, I guess, and get that to fit. And I think one of the common themes that we've talked about here, that data can't always tell you that. It sounds like I'm not for data. I love data, and it's a big part of our game and our life now with our AI. So it's not that. I just think it's about making sure that you read it correctly and put it into the context of what you're trying to achieve and what your club is all about.
Yeah,
Josh,
I think, great. I think it's, all of the above, really. I think it's, if we take our couple of instances that Victor referenced, we signed 2 players direct from South America last year, which was the first time we'd done it, in Gabriel Sara from Brazil and Marcelino Nunez from Chile. So obviously a million miles away from Norwich in England. So, but where we used data heavily there was both of them hit magnificent physical numbers, and the skill corner, I think the one we used for that. So we were very confident then that, okay, they can physically handle English football from a pure running perspective. But then also we were, in terms of the case of Sarah, we were looking for a very particular type of midfield player, which the truth is we couldn't find in Europe that we bought. We could definitely find him, but we couldn't find him that we could afford. So then it came for us of, okay, so we've got data here which says that this fits the profile of player that we want. We've scouted this guy with our eye for 4 years, because 4 years earlier we'd started our South America project with 2 full-time scouts in South America, 1 in Brazil, 1 in Argentina. So we also had that feel. I went out to Brazil to meet both players at the same time because Marcelino was playing against Sao Paulo, I think. So I got the opportunity to meet them face to face and do that sort of field test, if you like, not literally. We're not into that in Norwich, but it was about, I think, having the biggest comfort we could. And as a football club at that time, we were willing to take that risk because we saw it as a market. And this is where then we're going away a little bit from data now, but this is where then it's about the whole club being together to understand that South America is a market that we've invested, that we believe there could be value potentially for our football club in that. We want to minimize risk, of course, and maximize sort of opportunity. But then the whole club, including the head coach, obviously the ownership, myself as sporting director, the recruitment model, understood that at some point we've got to take this step and sign a player from this area. So if it went wrong, I'm pretty confident, and luckily both of these guys have worked out. But if it would have gone wrong, I'm still super confident that, you know, someone wouldn't have lost their job for that. It would have been, okay, what have we learned from this experience? But a bit like Dan's traffic light system that he spoke about, which I thought was a very great way of putting it across, is, you know, they hit greens and all of them, but also with the understanding from all of the key stakeholders of, you know what, this can go wrong. This can go wrong. And then it's not a blame culture or an environment. It's an environment of, okay, well, we've learned from this. And at some point we had to take the step. And then I think, and we're definitely going away from data now, but then it was about understanding, okay, we're bringing these 2 guys from South America, of which neither could speak English when they joined us. What do we need to do to give it the best chance of being successful? So, okay, we need a full-time interpreter. We need to make sure that from day one, they are comfortable in their living arrangements. We need to make sure that not only they get their visas, obviously, so they can play in the country, but what about their partners? With Sarah, for example, a massive part of his life, and again, this comes back to the human side, is his 2 dogs. So it was about making sure
what
that...
now with the Brexit, the dogs. It's a mess with the football players, the dogs, and the Brexit. It's crazy. All this.
Exactly. But no data was going to tell us about the dogs and how important that was to him. And literally, he didn't settle until the 2 dogs turned up. The 2 dogs turned up. Overnight, he becomes a different character. So again, I think it's just about, like you say, minimizing risk, but an understanding. I think when we talk about data at Norwich, it's about us as a whole club are going on that journey of making loads of mistakes, learning loads, getting a few bits right with it. But it's everyone at the club, from the top, from the ownership all the way down, is invested in. This is an area where the game and life is going, not just on the football side, but, you know, here in the previous presentation from your man from Man City around, you know, customer service, etc., etc. So we need to embrace it and understand it, but understanding that along the way we're going to get loads of it wrong, but that's then not pointing a gun at anyone's head. It's we're all invested in this.
Another point that I want 2 points for Finis to discuss. One is the rival analysis. No, for me, it's one of the things that make the game more equal. I think the analysis of the rivals now is the level of the detail is absolutely incredible. No, hope so. Marcelo Bielsa is not going to be upset with all this history. With Marcelo Bielsa, we promoted, and he discovered the platform of the data, of physical data of Premier League. Was incredible for him. Was like, what is that? I want that the rest of my life. And even in our model to individual mark, he created the mark with the speed of the players, creating the mark with how is our play with our speed. If Stuart Dallas have this speed, he put the mark with this player, he's there. Was really incredible for him. And now, obviously, you can create even really incredible reports of rival in terms of data, in percentage of attacks for which wing is more dangerous, the circumstances with the set pieces, that for me is really incredible, like the set pieces situation, where it's more weak position to score, where is the better player to create the mark, to have more chances to score. You demand and you give to your head coach the service with the club, or always you trust that the coach bring like the rival analysis? Because in the start, I always thinking that like club, we need to have the responsibility to provide the head coach the best rival analysis. Obviously, with normally now they have own analyst, and then he can decide. If you provide the best, he can use all of that, he can use that. Or what do you think? You need to give the freedom to the head coach in an important part of the game like
that? So I think as long as it's covered, it doesn't matter. So if the coach has an outstanding analyst that they know and trust, and they quite often do, don't they? They quite often, especially in that role, everyone, I've worked with them for years. They understand, this is the coach speaking. They understand what I need. They understand what I'm looking for. They know what I'm looking for to break down the opponent. Then that's great. I think if you've got one and you can support it from a club perspective, then that's also great. And as long as that area is covered, and it sounds like it's a bit of a neutral answer, but sometimes we as sporting directors don't know the best people out there, and maybe that one is working with that particular head coach, and sometimes the head coach don't know the best people, and it may be us as sporting directors have identified the best person. So I think as long as Sevilla, Norwich, Newcastle have got that area covered with the top data analysis software that you can get, with the person that can understand it, and key is put it into coaching language, then I think as a club that then we solve it. So I don't think it, in my opinion, Victor, I don't think it matters as long as it's covered off. And I think your point, if we all sit here in 5 years' time, it will have gone through the roof again. The data will be telling us things that we can't even imagine now. It'd be interesting. Let's have this conference again in 5 years' time and see where we're at, because it will have changed drastically again.
I review before Leeds United, one person make using the artificial intelligence. My English is worse because I am here in Spain 1 week, and my English was not really good there. Now it's worse. Sorry about that. And I review a study of corner. I was really impressed, really impressed. How out swim, in swim is really important. How they think at that. I think with the data start to grow, and I think we are going to, will be difficult surprise the rival with anything. Still, the football can surprise because the talent or one situation, the player really out of that, but will be more difficult surprise the rivals now, no? Stuart, with the level of analysis that we are suffering now.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge our head coaches have got actually is how much of that information do they need to see, and how much do they then need to pass on to their players? Because I think you're constantly battling against, you'll have experts who will talk about the human being can concentrate for X amount of minutes and take X amount of information in, yet all of our analysis team, when we're talking about the opposition, I'm pretty sure could produce hours upon hours of meeting material around every eventuality in a game and about every player, because there's so much information there to get. So I think the skill is, and I agree with Dan on this, I think it doesn't matter who translates it, as long as someone has got the ability to translate it, where the coach then fully understands what are the key points, and then the coach has got, his job is obviously then to get the player or players to understand exactly what he wants within the game plan with the knowledge that he chooses to share, because it's impossible to share everything with everyone, because the game dictates that if you watch enough of, I don't know, Joel Linton at Newcastle, you could see, he did do this once. Well, okay, does that mean he does it every game? And then the game you don't show the players, he does that thing once, creates a goal, you lose 1-0, and it's, why didn't you tell us that Joel Linton could do that? So I think that's the real skill. The area where we're trying to work on around data in our club is to have something which comes after that, which is definitely more, which is club-led, which is we're talking about how do we make it a situation where people aren't marking their own homework. And what we mean by that is we have a game against Hull City on Saturday, okay, and at the end of that game, rather than, and we've all been there, the coaches sit around and go, the game plan was perfect today, or if it wasn't perfect, it was normally the player's fault, not the game plan's fault. How can we have something which analyzes and determines on, first of all, was the game plan correct? Because maybe the game plan wasn't correct. Secondly, if it was correct, was it carried out correctly? If not, why not? Because there could be reasons for that, such as a player got sent off after a minute or whatever, and how did that go against ultimately what we determine as what we see as a good performance? So at the end of it, we can almost, and we're in the infancy of this, and Dan's right, we should come back in 5 years and hopefully we'll be a bit further along, where almost at the end of a game, within a day, 2 days, or however long, there's a report which actually says win, lose or draw, because I think that's actually slightly irrelevant to this. It's actually that was close to a performance we wanted, and then within each player, that player was close to performing at the level that we wanted him to do, rather than we win 1-0 and everything's fine, we lose 1-0 and everything's a disaster. How can we get this data to a place where it can really help us, and then help me as a sporting director in that case, in terms of really evaluating the coach and the coach's team's work, rather than just, yeah, it was a good training week and the sessions look good and yeah, the game plan looks great, and really without any real knowledge to sort of back that up other than experience and stuff. So that's where we're trying to envisage this going. But with the coaches and the coaching team's input into that, it's not something which is hidden away behind the corner. It's like we want them to help us grow this. What can make them better coaches as well.
Really good interventions. I have a all Spanish coach, really all style. I love him, by the way. I am going to don't say the name because the quote was really strong, and I don't know if he gives me authorization to give. He said me that the GPS is going to kill the football, and was around 15 years ago, no? And now it's really trendy that a lot of people of sports science, by the way, really impressed the level of sports science in England. Really more higher level respect to Spain in all the sense. In this kind of things, it's for me was one of the things that I am really impressed in the level of the professional and the use all the sports science data in the physical, internally, academy, really more higher level in Spain. Now I'm back to Seville and I look at a really modern advance of that, and I am really happy this week when I know that. But now, after this first moment about the GPS, that now is really trendy, that the person responsible of sports science have the real life data of physical, that normally a lot of coaches have influence to ask with any assistant, it's about this player for make these substitutions in with the real data of physical. How is your opinion about that? No, because it's a lot of coaches that don't believe a lot. For us, I have the experience with Jesse that he likes that. He like us before about the real data in the GPS for make a substitution. How is your opinion about that?
Do you want me to go down first?
Your turn first, Stuart.
It's my turn. I think it's a real interesting one, actually, because one of my personal concerns of it is I think we're starting to put limitations on our players. We're starting to, which I don't think is necessarily our place to do that. I think it's massively important to monitor players? Is it massively important to see, does that player physically develop? Yeah, absolutely, 100%. But what I don't like to hear, and I always take to task within our club, is when it's, he can do no more today, high-speed running in training. Why not? He's sort of hit his threshold for the week. But who's decided that threshold? And why have we decided that that's his threshold? And how do we learn to break that threshold if we don't push through that threshold? And by the way, what happens on Saturday's FA Cup game if it goes to extra time? Do we have to ring him off then? Is that what we're saying? So I think we have to be super careful around the physical data. And again, I think it comes back to one of the first points that Dan made is people understanding it. And I worry a little bit in sports science, for example, that we're still not quite fully there in really understanding it. And I think that if we're not careful, it can baffle our coaches with science of, look, it says on the laptop or the iPad that he shouldn't do anymore, so he shouldn't do anymore. And it concerns me a little bit now with even player behavior of them just accepting being told they can't do more. And I think when we're trying to build stronger characters, more resilient human beings is from a very early age within our academies now, in England especially, we're maybe limiting people's ability to go through that threshold, to understand what it's like to suffer, to understand what it's like, you know, when it hurts. So that worries me. It worries me when I hear coaches talk about, yeah, okay, we should adapt the session today because they did too much yesterday. And it's like, well, yeah, but if this is a really important day for the training for the game, why would we dictate it? Because maybe they did 100 meters extra than they did yesterday. Because I think we've all got the common sense where you can tell when someone's tired, when someone's fatigued, and we know where the risk should be willing to be taken or not. So it worries me a little bit of where we're going with it. But I also think that when we get it right, and we will, then it can be sort of super powerful. But I worry sometimes that within sports science, medicine, it's being used to overprotect players and not make them robust enough is a fear of mine, you know. And I think sometimes you've got to break them to see how far it is. Now, not lunacy, so I'm not on about back in the day of running at 6 a.m. for 12 miles in pre-season, make them sick, you know. No, we're years ahead of that. We know that, and so we should be. But yeah, I mean, it's like pre-season now. We started today, for example, and I know by the end of this week it's going to be, oh, he's a bit tight. Well, yeah, of course he's tight. He should be tight. This should be hard. We're trying to a minimum 48 game season, and what are we going to do in Christmas when we play 3 games in 5 days? Are we going to go, he's tight, he can't play? Of course we're going to go, no, he has to play because there's now 3 points. So yeah, that's where I have some challenges a little bit with it.
I always look at other sports and what others are doing. So if you look at the in-game data someone like Formula One has, it's fascinating, isn't it? The amount of information they can get back. And I know it's different, but you know, what the car's doing, what the driver's doing, and all those things. And again, I think that's where the game will go. I also wonder in 5-10 years' time whether we're going to have any significant rule changes. So something like rolling subs. The media and the TV stations are always after the next thing, aren't they? They want to make it football even more attractive to sell even more TV rights. So maybe it goes rolling subs. So players are coming on and off, like ice hockey. And that's where potentially I think that next level of data could be even more powerful if there's things like that. But we're not there yet with the rule changes. I saw there was a club in England that had a subs coach. Did you see that? I think it's Wimbledon, wasn't it?
Yes.
So they actually had a member of staff that was in charge of substitutions. So he would stand next to the head coach. And I think it was a bit of both, Victor. I think there was some tactical things that he was looking at to say, okay, we change that play, we could do that. But I think there was also a physical part to it as well. So he's getting some physical information that player X or player Y was starting to become more of a physical risk, or maybe wasn't able to, his physical performance was dropping during the game. So the more and more staff that we have and the more and more resources we have, I wonder whether that scenario will go to as well, that in 4 or 5 years' time, we're making those big decisions with somebody that's their sole job, is to read the physical data on the players, start to identify drop-offs, maybe start to identify when the players are going into the red zone, where the risk and reward is they're more likely to get injured. I'm with Stuart on this one. I'm not sure that there's anybody who's shown me anything that can definitely dictate that Victor Orta has run enough and can't run anymore, or any one of our players. Clearly, Victor, you can run a long way. You're a highly tuned athlete. So yeah, again, I think in 5 years' time, we'll all be amazed at the amount of data that we're getting and what we can do with it. But we have to make sure, again, we read the data carefully, we use it wisely, and we use it to the advantage to protect the players and also to try and help us all win more football matches.
Was really incredible share this time with two of you, two masterful people, masterful professional. For me, it's only for stay here a long time, but it's a really busy time, you know. It's market. I have now. Let me look. only one missed call and the chairman. Well, it's not bad. It's one of important that I am really, Pablo, if we can make 2 quick questions.
Yes, exactly.
You know, it's a busy period for all of us, and our guest was really, really, really kindful to accept our invitation. And then 2 quick questions and a proper goodbye, because it was really incredible day at Pablo today.
More of a reason for us to really thank you guys, knowing that that period of the year you are in the moment with the market windows probably quite intense. So we really appreciate your time. We got 2 people in the room at the moment. The first 2 people who entered, will give them access to ask a couple of questions, and then we can close it up if you guys are okay with that. So the first person to come in to ask questions, I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly, will be 𝐃𝐚𝐭𝐚 Tugu. So 𝐃𝐚𝐭𝐚, welcome to the session.
Hello to all of you. Thank you for this great presentation. It's 𝐃𝐚. Thank you, Pablo. I have 2 questions, actually, if I may. The first one, Stuart mentioned a little bit about mistakes. What is the crucial mistake that you did by signing a player, maybe using data that you learned, that you have it with yourself right now? And the second one is more personal, because all of you, as far as I know, don't have playing football professional experience. So I would like to know what advice can you give to someone who wants to be in the same position as you one day? Thank you.
No, good to meet you. Yeah, I mean, the biggest mistake, I won't mention his name because that's not fair.
No, without mentioning names, yeah, thanks.
But we took a player because his physical numbers were exceptional. And ultimately, when he was in the building and working with us, it became apparent incredibly quickly over the course of probably a week within pre-season that this guy actually can't learn. And we actually can't teach, the coaches actually can't teach him to be a better player. So yeah, training with us at a higher level, etc. than he came from, of course, he's grown a little bit, but not to the level we wanted. You know, and this guy, we signed to a 4-year contract. It cost us, I think it's £2 million, something like that, which for our club is a lot of money. So yeah, that was a real lesson of, you know, we got super excited around what he could do physically. And that was a real sort of smack in the face, for want of a better term, of okay, but if the guy then can't learn and develop, because we knew his deficiencies technically and tactically, because obviously we could see them, but we didn't do enough research and speaking and meeting of the guy to really understand him and what his sort of ability to learn would be. So that's the biggest.
I have one mistake in the similar situation that Stuart. You know what is my mistake? More times when you think and have perhaps a player with problems of behave, problems, not really good professional, and you perhaps have a link because you know a long time, and you always think, with me will be different. And perhaps it's a different during a moment, and in a moment again, back the bad behave. It's like I have a big mistake with a player, was in Leeds United, was Spanish, and I don't give more clues, but all the people know because he leaves Leeds soon. It's about that. It's saying, no, with me, I can create the atmosphere. With me, he will be different. With me, he can be, and normally, if anything happened before, happen later. I don't know how to explain that. We cannot be a god, say, no, we are going to change personalities. For me, it's one mistake. And by the way, you say one thing that is really wrong, because Dan Ashworth played really well in Eastbourne Town in North League. So don't say that because he was a player. I was absolutely horrible. And then Dan was an ex-player. Don't say that because it's not true that we are not ex-players.
Sorry, Dan.
Thanks, Victor. Yeah, I narrowly missed out on Barcelona and Real Madrid. Blimey, I think you all make a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. What's the phrase? Show me a man who's never made a mistake. I'll show you a man who's never made a decision. So we make decisions all the time. You get some right, some wrong. You have to get more right than wrong ultimately if you want to stay in it. The 2 that spring to mind are similar to Victor's. So one was actually a player that we had, a young player that just broke into the first team. And I knew it was wrong to give him a big contract, and we did. So I kicked myself on that one, and there's no excuse because I knew him. Every bone in my body was saying, don't do it. but the pressure externally was to give him one, and we did. And the other one again was we signed a player. It was only a loan. It was a low cost one. And then when I met him for dinner the night before his medical, I knew he wouldn't fit, and I didn't have enough about me and courage to stop the transfer or stop the loan. So that was a lesson learned. Second part to your question is what advice? You're right in that sometimes big named ex-professional players get doors opened for them because they've been big named ex-professional players. Now, there's not much we can do about that now. It's a bit too late for us to be big name professional players. I think the only motto I've had, I think, is just work harder than anybody else. So if you're diligent, you work hard, you're honest, and you do your best every day, more so than potentially relying on a name and a playing career. That's the only advice I could give you.
Thank you. You're without a doubt now a big name as a sporting director. So thanks to all of you.
Eastbourne Borough. Thanks, Victor.
Thank you, Joanne, for
And
your question.
one another mistake that we said is the classical agent would offer a player normally with problems of behave, and they say, no, he's changed. He's changed now. He's different. All are changed. Wow, what really quick changes.
Thank you. Gracias, Pablo.
Thank you. Gracias. And we have two more. We have Alfonso Aparicio, who will come in a second, and then Gabor, and then we can close it with that. And if you guys can ask one question, that'll be great. So Alfonso, you in?
Hi everyone. First of all, what a pleasure to listen this great open class. And specifically, I want to ask to Victor Horta. Could you tell me if there are any difference about working the data in all the aspects in a Spanish team and England or European team through your experience?
Well, to be honest, I arrived to Seville Football Club and I didn't think so. It can be any team in Spain that work with data like Seville. So then my first experience after back to the Spanish football, perhaps is arriving at the club that is put the data more in the grass. For me, one of my feelings with Seville that I am trying to make in leagues with different resources, less resources in leagues, incredible. But Seville put the data in the grass really, really, really easy. And for me, was really good about that. And for me, was this the big difference that I found in other aspects. And like Dan said, that I like of that, one of the things that I always have doubts is with the external companies provide the data. And I feel that all the people have the same and you are not going to make the difference. And in Seville here, they create his own tool. And for me, one of the difference of the know-how internally can make the data, even now with the new coach that arrived 3 months ago, they have a meeting and they create special characteristics for the coach. And it's the first time that I look the transition of the data really, really clear. And by the way, I'm really happy because, like, I believe that like a part of the process. And here in Seville, they are making really, really well.
Thanks.
Thank you, Alfonso, for your question. And we're going to pass to the next person. We got Gabor here. So Gabor, welcome to the session.
Good evening, gentlemen. I would like to thank you all once again for the presentation. It was really a valuable lesson for all of us, I think. So my question is, there are so many sports tech companies coming in day after day and after day into the industry. How do you navigate in this topic? How often do you review the workflow and how long does it take to implement something new into the current workflow that you have?
Yeah, I think I'll go first, guys. Again, that comes back to trusting the experts. So as I'm sure Victor and Dan have, you get approached all the time about, we've got this software, can we have a meeting with you? I actually always say no. I always say, please speak to this person at the club because that's their area of expertise, and you're going to talk to me and I'm just going to have to ask their opinion on it. And it's difficult because one thing I do believe with data and this area is you've got to have some patience with it, and you've got to give it time to grow, and you've got to learn it, and you've got to learn to trust with it, and you've got to have an element of sort of trial and error. And I do think we've got caught up at Norwich for sure of looking for quick fixes and, okay, now we'll try this software because we've been sold a great story about this software, or it's a great deal. Whereas now, because we've created a data and insights department, any data that we buy, whether that's around ticketing services, whether that's around sports science, GPS stuff, funnels into this department for them to see, is there any of the other softwares we're using which can do the same job? So we're not paying twice for ultimately saying, oh, the academy are using this, and the first thing we use this, well, actually, we only need one then. But I think it's trusting the experts who this is their job and this is their day. Where I come in is I think I have quite a clear idea in the football area of what I want the end to look like, and the information I want to receive as a sporting director, or the head coach wants to receive as a head coach. Can you guys go away and find the best way of doing that for us? I think then in terms of what they use, because it is a minefield, because every week, a bit like agents, there's always a new agent comes on. Oh, I've got it. We do things differently as an agency. Well, fuck, I've heard that 2,000 times this year. It's the same with data. We've now found data which can find you Messi for £1. Oh my God, it's I think it's just trying to leave the experts, and then we, or myself as a sporting director, I have to trust that expert. That's why we employ him or her to do the job that they do, is because they're the experts in that area.
For me, a bit less the same. I think I have a knowledge for try make the transition in my useful, but obviously I need another big level for take decisions. Even in Seville, we have a person that is the head of investigation, development, and innovation, and all these things that arrive to the club. He is the first filter, and for me, I don't have that in Leeds. For me, it's really good. When I receive any information, I pass to this person, José María Cruz Gallardo. He analyzes, he makes the comments, he prepares a report for the board, and back to me, and gives the opinion. And for me, it's really useful that, because not in the past, more times I meet with people that, like Stuart said, all the tools looks amazing and I don't really understand, and then more times even make mistakes to hide these things that you don't give value. Then now in Seville, I have a person that one of his tasks is that, and for me is really helpful. Same
answer. I think one of the principles of leadership is you get good people around you that are better than you in all of those fields. So we'd want somebody who's better than me with data and insight, whatever the title is, understands it better, can sift through the rubbish better. So I'd be the same as Stuart and Victor. Press the forward button on the email, send it to them.
Then you guys all say that it is a necessity to have a research and development department, let's call it this.
For me, absolutely.
Yeah, I would. I would say, though, I think, again, as in our roles as sporting director, I think you should have an idea of what you want it to look like. So, as Stuart said, it's about bringing the club together, and you don't want islands or silos doing things differently. So bring the club together, have an idea of what you want that information to tell you, but then you need experts to tell you how you're going to get there, and the best way to get there, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you very much. That was all from my side.
Okay,
thank you all for your participation.
Thank you.
And before I pass on to Victor to close, I would like to briefly say that we got lots of other questions and lots of people. So sorry for all the, all the listeners and attendees who want to ask more questions. But yeah, we'll have more events in the future. And thank you everyone for watching. So Victor, back to you.
For me, for finish, really thank you, really kind. My list of wishes, obviously Stuart, promotion, really easy. Dan, I have 2 wishes for you. One, cross in Champions League, because the suite of your chairman is the best champagne in England by far. Then I won back. And obviously last year was a final. Hope so this year is a trophy for Newcastle, because you deserve. This is my list of wishes for you, and really thank you. And the market was not really crazy for all of us.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Victor. I wish you luck in Sevilla as well.
Thanks.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you guys for being here. We really appreciate it. Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you.